Shalom. Give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors, salutations to the elders, the apostles of Great Millstone, the elder bishops as well, and to the hopeful elect. Greetings. All right. You so-called Negro, Latinos, Native Americans are the true biblical bloodline Israelites, as well as the scattered of the speckled bird Israelites. The Israelites that might look like, the Israelite Gentiles that might look like the heathen. And that's what this lesson is going to go into. We're going to address that, So I got a video. And salvation is only to the true bloodline Israelites, which come after the seed of three of the patriarchs, three main patriarchs in the Bible: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And religion like Christianity, Islam, it's all the same. It all comes out of the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church. I forget what I was going into, but they don't deal with the history. And so I'm gonna show you a video because you so-called Negroes, we actually come from Eastern Asia or Central Asia. Okay, the so-called black man don't originate from Africa. Now the actual Hamitic people that live in Africa, those are the true Africans. The Negroes are different. Okay, we come from Central Asia, which today they falsified the landmass of Europe. It's actually Western Asia, Central Asia, in Eastern Asia. That's why they call the so-called black man the Asiatic what do they call it? The Asiatic black man, because the so-called Negro actually originates out of Central, where the Lord came from. You see what I'm saying? Where the Lord came from. All right? Jerusalem. So our people are scattered. And I'm going to show you a video right now, okay, of these so-called Asian people that are actually Israelites. All right? Like Bruce Lee is a good example. Bruce Lee was not a Moabite. Okay? He looked like the Moabites. He looked like the ancient Moabites. Okay? But he's actually a speckled bird. He's an Israelite. He has the spirit of, Israel. The scriptures speak about that the Most High would scatter us among these nations. And John the Revelator actually saw, and we're going to get it, but I'm going to play these two videos. We're going to get it because John the Revelator, look, we tell you guys like Conor McGregor, a lot of these celebrities, Leonardo DiCaprio, what's his name? What's this motherfucker's name? Brad Pitt is a Jake. He don't know it. Okay, because you got to understand, science and history that we learn, in this country of America is pseudoscience. Okay, and over there in the East, a lot of those countries actually know this history I'm bringing about, the average person. Okay, they know that the original Germans were so-called black people. They know that the original bloodline of the Russians go back to the true czars were so-called black people. Okay, that's what the Bolshevik Revolution was about, destroying that bloodline. Okay, you had light-skinned Jake, Tawny, and then you had what's the other word? Tawny and I forget the other word, meaning dark skin. Okay, but I'm gonna show you this video because this is gonna prove. Okay, and the scriptures say that it is the spirit that bear witness that we are the sons of the living power. So the spirit of Israel, the Israelites. When I say Israel, I'm talking about the true bloodline Israelites, not those imposters in the land right now. Okay, and we can trace them through the spirit. The scriptures say that again. It is the spirit that bear witness that we, because the scriptures say that the Israelites are the salt of the earth. What is salt if it has no flavor? You see what I'm saying? It's useless. So our people are going to bear that main attribute to have flavor and just a spirit to know what to do. So look, I'm gonna show you this first. All of these Japanese people are these particular people are all Israelites. Okay. Now I want you to look at them, and you can actually see in their spirit that they're different from a true heathen Japanese. If you look at a real heathen Japanese, they're damn near retarded. You know, when you look at Jake, like look at Bruce Lee. And when I say Jake, I'm talking about the patriarch of the 12 tribes scattered of the Yasha'alites, which means the princes of power, the sons and daughters of God, the chosen people, the chosen nation. Okay, and the fact that they're scattered, they're going to look like the nations that they're scattered in. Okay, because you got to remember, the mother is the incubator for the seed of the father. You are who your father is, because within the seed, the sperma, the heavenly father puts the spirit, he puts the life. Okay, comes from the fourth dimension. Okay, the space outside of this 3D realm, the spirit realm. And the Most High already has your particular lot, your judgment, how it's going to play out on the earth, who you're going to be, what your lot is going to be. Okay, so you are who your father is, but because your mother is the incubator, you're going to look like whoever you're scattered among. Okay, because if the Israelite man deals with a heathen woman that looks Arab, no matter what that child looks like, that's going to be an Israelite because that father. So you have all of these celebrities, you have all of these people that don't even know they go back to Jake. But I'm going to show you. All right. Let me play this first video. We're going to get some scripture. I just want to say something. He's not acting. You know, they have a term that they say wigger. When you get these white boys that are acting black, a lot them white boys that act like niggas are actually niggas. They're Israelites. That's not even hard to understand, because you gotta, you know, again, the food system. When you go back to what 700 AD, 300 AD, right? When you go back to 300 AD, I'm just giving some history because we're gonna go in the scriptures. We're gonna bring it out. When you go to about, I say 250 AD, all right, that began the fall of Rome, right? And Rome, in contrary to what you believe, was a multi-ethnic nation, just like America is today. America is an extension of ancient Rome, and the scriptures speak about it. Okay, so you had a lot of so-called Negroes, black people in Rome. Okay, so Rome fell in the AD 300s because the same Negroes that was in their military. Okay, one famous name is Septimius Severus. Okay, pretty much the slaves took over. So the fall of Rome was the initiation of what they call the Holy Roman Empire. The reason why they call it the Holy Roman Empire is because the Israelite people that were in captivity just slid in the power seat, and they built up all throughout Western Europe. And this is proof. All throughout Western Europe, when you think about the medieval ages, right? it was all built like Judea, where they came from. The way they built those castles, even the most mini castle was built like a smaller version of the city wall, the constructions during the time of David and Solomon, and that place was bad too, man. Palaces and So then you had a 1,000-year period of so-called black people ruling throughout Europe, and they weren't African. Okay, that's what the so-called the white man uses to lie about that, because so all of those Negroes that was laying with them white women. Okay, you have books that they one of the books I know a brother mentioned it is called something like 7 times a day, because the so-called white man, and they'll tell you, scholars will tell you that the so-called white woman was being like sold to all of the, all over Europe. So they were breeding, a bunch of light-skinned children. So you got to think about first generation. You got to think about second generation, third generation. You got a lot of so-called white boys that don't even know that they line go back to Jake. And they wonder why they fit in with Jake, why they act just like a Jake. Okay, a son of Jacob. Okay, and the seed of Jacob would be scattered throughout the earth. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to play this second video. All right, because the so-called white man in his history, he's blacked this out. You don't get a thorough education. Okay, that's why everything is supposed to be filtered through the scriptures. And one of the presidents, I forget his name right now, he said that a thorough understanding of the Bible is better than any college education. And that was one of your I think it was it wasn't Reagan, it was Roosevelt. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. He said that a thorough understanding, because the scriptures is science. Okay, it gives you a better explanation than pseudoscience. Okay, niggas just come from nowhere and evolving from monkeys and single cell organisms that don't, and that's a theory. All right, so they made it fact. Okay, pretty much the scriptures is evident. Creation in itself is evident. Okay, so we're addressing the topic of the scattered Israelites, because when the Lord come back, he's going to save only the Israelites. You have to have that bloodline. Okay, but you're going to have Israelites that's going to look like these heathen nations. That's my point. Okay, and that's a stumbling block to our people, because we tell them that the nations can't be saved, but then they don't, they detach themselves from the faith, because they actually think the other nations are other nations. The people that they're close to are actually Jakes like them. Okay, but they don't understand this concept. So I'm gonna play this, and then we're gonna go into some scriptures, because this was a curse. Okay, our people being scattered among these nations, looking like these nations, was actually a curse. But see, on this side, they benefited, because these other nations actually, they get treated better than Jake, because Jake is, the scriptures speak about Jake being hated among the nations. So it benefits Jake to look like these heathens, but that's actually a curse in the ancient world. Okay, when our people had sovereignty and was decked out, okay, they didn't want to look like no goddamn heathen. But let's play this. It's a donut, holding them in only 구멍이 보이네 속이 폈잖아. I throw you off the knapsack, and I bump you in the hangar. 형 목소리를 깜깜 남아 있는 잔상, 너도 감상 빵빵 터져. 넌 KD 벤츠 나를 로날도. Let me open up my 냉장고. just chop you up like 이연보. 0 to 100, I finish in 3 seconds. Look at you, don't take a minute. 신세가 lightweight compared to this stupid your machete flows. You know how many Asian women are Jakes out here? Most of them Filipino girls are Jakes. And if you trace the history, you'll clearly, even they know it. Okay, even in the Philippines, they got they call them something about some negritos or some shit. Okay, Manny Pacquiao is one of them. And some of them look just like Negroes with some curly hair. Okay, and then the rest of them is light skinned, like Manny Pacquiao will be a light-skinned version of a whatever the fuck they call him. Okay, he's a Jake. That's why he be stumping niggas out in the ring. Okay, if he wasn't a Jake and he was a real heathen, okay, one of them Filipinos that go back to Japheth that be eating big ass raw, frogs straight out the mud, okay, he wouldn't be doing what he do. All right, but his line goes back to Israel. That's the point. And if you actually look at their spirit, again, the scriptures tell you the spirit bear witness. If you have the spirit of discernment, okay, like if you look at a real Edomite, right, the so-called white man, if you look at a real Edomite, and then you look at a so-called white people that's actually an Israelite, okay, they got the spirit of Israel in them, you can actually see this person almost look black underneath. He almost looks, it's something about, okay, that's the spirit. You're looking at the spirit. It's bearing witness. But then you have certain Jakes you can't even tell. They'll be blonde hair, blue eyes. Okay, a lot of those gingers are Jake. Okay, because that's pretty much the tribe of Benjamin and then the Edomite woman. That create that red hair with that white milky skin. You got to think about how many generations when, again, so-called black people was ruling all throughout Eastern Europe, okay, mingling with them Asian women. And that go all the way back to the house of David, further back. Okay, damn near since the beginning of time, the so-called black man been dealing with the Ammonite and the Moabite woman. Okay, today who you would call the Asian woman. Okay, that's not their true nationality. That goes back to the ancient names. Okay, their true nationalities that go back to the ancient names is Ammon and Moab. You see? So let me. 3 seconds over the crisscross. Stuff for the you shit you not a big boss. Meaty by that get lost. She don't better go hard to get lost. Do check you better be ready to let you says it. Put out a single video. I can tell that you artist is sketchy backhand donut man. Now I'm gonna show you another. I'm gonna show you another video. These are Israelites, man. So you got a lot of these so-called white boys. I say so-called because they're actually Jake. They get in the octagon and they be whooping ass. And you got these actual Edomites, these heathens that's getting all pumped up. Oh, yeah. See, we be doing something. No, every last one of them. I could go down the list. They all Jakes from Uriah Faber. Man, I'm forgetting their names right now. You got Uriah Faber. You got, damn, I can't remember shit right now. Pierre, I forget his name. Pierre. It's a lot of them. All of them. And then you got the so-called Latinos. That's Jake. Okay, so Jakes run the complete UFC. All right, Negroes. And it's not that many Negroes in the UFC. And two of the best fighters to ever touch the UFC, Anderson Silva, okay, and John Bone Jones. Jakes, different tribes, man. But I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this last video. I'm gonna play this real quick. Okay, you gotta spit out the bones. But AI, the spirit of AI is really behind the spirit of the Lord. And not all this is AI. Really, if you could get your hands on some old books before Esau started whitewashing everything, okay, and see what Esau did. And the scriptures speak about how he would seek to paint over our images, during the Renaissance, the rebirth. That's when they started doing that. You got to understand when this man came back into power. He went throughout the earth and, his heart is deep. He searched out everything. So he said, look, we got to, in order for us to uphold this lie, because we really cavemen. We just came out the caves. We have to erase everybody's history and then whitewash it. Esau started setting up people and taking pictures of them and saying, okay, This gonna be your new nationality. You gonna replace, because my descendants come from America. They don't come from Africa. As much as people want to tell me, yeah, you just hate being black. Nah, like I'm dead serious. And I used to wonder why when I used to go visit my people, like I had my great grandmother, her hair was all the way to her ass. She like a Native American, but she looked like a light-skinned black woman, Native American. Beautiful though. And she used to just stare at me. And I found that real odd. She would fix me a big breakfast and just stare at me, and I would kind of be like uncomfortable. And I asked my mom, she was like, because you look exactly like her son, and he had died. That's my mother's real father. He died at a young age, pretty much. So like I guess I look just like him. But that's an example, Jake is mingled among is mixed up, So let's play this. It tells you that Ephraim in the book of Hosea is like a cake. Pretty much you bake a cake, the unturned. The unturned side, so they kind of light skinned and shit because they're mingled among these nations. And three of the main tribes that breeded with the Asian, who you call the Asians today, when you trace we trace the history, we filter it all through the scriptures, which is all scholarly work, because once you get into filtering everything through the scriptures, now you have the geographical locations. You can go over there and you can find evidence, archaeology, like the Moabite stone, okay, which proves that the modern day Asian, those were the ancient Moabites, okay, and it speaks of in the Moabite stone, the Most High's name is in there. It speaks about how they were warned with Israel, which confirms in the scriptures. And the Israelite man was bordering with those people. So the Israelite man had been breeding with the Asian woman. So when you deal with, ancient Japan and Chinese, ancient China, all of that rich history, the so-called white man gave to the Moabites, that really go back to our people. The first dynasties. Okay, if you could find an honest scholar, he would tell you they'll call them African, but that's another lie. Okay, instead of saying Hebrew, okay, they'll say African. Okay, because they always see through Africa, they use pseudoscience. It's called replacement theory. It's called racism, scientific racism, right? Which pretty much puts, takes the so-called Hebrew Israelite man, so-called Negro man, and matches him with Africa so that he can become, a monkey. He came from monkeys. Okay, he came from he's primitive, he prone to violence. But no, that's another line of people. Okay, you're talking about the Hamitic people. Okay, the Sudanese, the real Libyans, the Eritreans. You got a lot of Ethiopians though. You got a lot of Israelites among them, and they're always beautiful. Okay, but let's play this.
Before they bleached the bloodline in the Meiji era, you had the Kuro, the Black Kings. Yeah, look it up.
Again, before I let it play, the original so-called Japanese and Chinese people were Negroid, okay? And you'll still see it today. If you actually go over there and you go into the countrysides, okay, you'll see motherfuckers with brown skin and afros. Where they come from? Again, the so-called white man will put that African on there to say, oh yeah, they was shipped over here during slavery. That's a lie. They was indigenous. They was already there because of the diaspora, which you have to trace. Okay, the Israelites through you got to filter through the scripture. It gives you all the records where they went. Northern Kingdom went to Assyria. They went from Assyria, came to America. Christopher Columbus used the Bible to navigate over here. That's the truth about it. You see? So these so-called Asians you see today, Those are not the people, you know. Okay, why you don't see them niggas dominating the UFC? You see that? You don't see them niggas in samurai history. Okay, you were considered, you know, officially a samurai. I know brothers bringing this out. You would have to, you know, have a Negroid blood in you to really be a. But see, in Hollywood, they don't. Okay, they white it out. They don't tell you that. They'll give you that one nigga that they say he was African, and that's a whole scam. You know, that's really to cover the fact that no, their whole culture came from us. You see what I'm saying? And really, the martial arts go back from the house of David. That's why I explain the history. So our people was masters at martial arts, going back to Abraham. And when they mingled among those people over there, guess what? All of that culture of the temple and the style they built, the wall, okay, that was all built by Jake. Esau, put it like this: Esau raced the history. It tells you that in Revelations, where is that, the 20th chapter, that his job is to go out and deceive the nations, deceive the world. Okay, that's what the serpent, that's what the devil would do. It tells you in Job 9:24 that he covereth the faces of the judges thereof. The true judges of the earth are the sons of God, the Israelites, which are in a fallen state right now. So this video is showing you how our people were they didn't stay in Judea. They've always been migrating around the earth. The scriptures say that the earth was created for our sake. So before the so-called white man, the Edomites, came into power, our people had already been around the earth, was already selling to America to bring back American exotic animals back to Judea. Okay, gold. America was known as had some of the choicest gold. So we was coming out here. See, you wouldn't know that unless you spoke to a scholar, an official scholar, not no college professor that ain't never been nowhere. You know? Again, the Moabite stone proves everything we're saying. And we even know how the so-called Asian man looks the way he do. Okay, those are the sons, they're the sons of Lot. Okay, and I did a lesson one time. I got a bunch of views, and it made perfect sense to even the average person. You know, because if you listen to Esau's pseudoscience, you really believe that he turned that way because it was cold in Europe. No, if you actually go to Petra in the Middle East, you can see where Esau came from. He didn't, you know, his whole, you know, who he is, he's an Edomite. And he knows it. Okay? The super elite knows it, not these slave Edomites in this society. They're slaves to their own nation. That's how wicked. You know, the scriptures speak about the house of Satan being divided. And our people are divided too. And they're going to look. So let me finish this video, and I'm going to bust right to Revelations. Because, again, John the Revelator seen, when it speaks about the salvation, when the Lord returns, in Revelation, the 7th chapter, it speaks about the 144,000, which are all men. 12,000 men of each tribe, from the tribe of Judah to the tribe of Issachar, the southern and northern kingdom. It doesn't mention any other nation. Okay, and they represent the governing body of Yahweh Shai. When the scriptures speak about the body of Jesus Christ, okay, who you ignorantly and fraudulently call Jesus Christ, when it speaks about his body, that represents the first fruits, the elected, the chosen. But then John the Revelator also, because you got to understand, an angel, you know, made him spiritually be able to see the vision. He turned and seen a multitude, and he said, "Who are they?" He said, like, where they come from? Who are they? And the angel broke it down to him. Okay, these are those that come out of every kindred, every nation, every tongue. They come out of great tribulation. And that goes back to the scattering, because like in Cambodia, right? Like you got these Cambodians over here, like in Long Beach, act just like Negroes. And you'll have people be like, man, you know what I'm saying? Why they acting like that? Okay, no, they're the sons and daughters. Now, among them are the actual heathen, the Japhetic, because a lot of them are actually Japhetic, the heathen, and they're bugged the hell out. They're in the forest eating a raw squirrel. But the ones that, again, got that salt, got that spirit, those are Israelites. Somewhere down their line, Jake, because Jake was in those lands. Jake went east in Asia thousands of years before the so-called white man. Okay, we was, again, that's why you want to stick you back in Africa. Okay, because then they can say you just came out of a mud hut. They could point at the heathen over there, because you got to remember, all the nations were dark in the beginning. You see what I'm saying? But they could point, but they were different. Okay, every nation has a different spirit, just like for birds, for example. Because people say, oh, we're all same blood. We are the same blood. The scriptures say that, but we're not the same spirit. And the spirit is what matter, because we're actually celestials. We're actually creatures. Your spirit is a creature. It's a creation. That's the actual you. So in the spirit realm, in the heavens, where the Most High is, the Father of spirits, okay, before he even created this earthly plane, one second, before he even created this earthly plane, what the scriptures say, he set the bounds around the nations. Okay, he set their borders, meaning that whoever was going to be an Edomite was going to be an Edomite. That was his role in the movie. You're going to have a nation full of Edomites. You're going to have the sons of God. Okay, you're going to have the Ishmaelites, the Arabs. Okay, you're going to have the Persians. They call them Iran today. You're going to have, Mizraim, the Sudanese, the Egyptian, those are the original Egyptians, the Sudanese, them tall, dark, they're kind of slow, that's the heathen. Okay, they're not, but you got Negroes scattered all throughout Africa. Okay, again, going back to the diaspora, you have something called migration patterns. And yes, you are going to have a lot of Negroes that look like so-called Africans. I say so-called Africans because there's no such thing as African. Even those people over there are not Africans. They're their prospective tribes that go back to, their original names. Okay, so let's.
Before they bleached the bloodline in the Meiji era, you had the Kuro, the Black Kings. Yeah, look it up. Kuro means black, means king. Same word they use now for black paint. It used to mean us. Ever heard of the Jomen? The people with thick hair, dark skin, and broad faces? Those were the original islanders. Every archaeologist worth their student loans knows it. The bones don't lie, but the university paycheck do. Check the Tohoku University digs. They literally found Afro-textured hair impressions in ancient pottery. Receipts, baby. Then you had the Satsuma and Ryukyu nobles down in Okinawa, darker than half your cousins on funeral day in July. They traded with Africa and Indonesia before Europe could even spell ship. You once sourced...
Real quick, first time I ever learned Italians were actual niggas is when one told me. And I thought he was joking. I was working at Christian Dior in Beverly Hills. A woman's, I was doing loss prevention. I had to work with this dude one night. He was cool as hell. He looked like a corny ass white man. And I didn't pay him no attention, but when he came up and started talking to me, he was spitting some he was giving me game on these females. But it was solid though. I'm like, how the fuck he know this nigga look like a nerd or some shit? And he was like, nah, we Italians, we're like the black people of the Europeans. And that's true, because some of them don't know that, but some of them will tell you that their ancestors come from the original I hate saying Moors. Okay, because they didn't call themselves Moors. Okay, it just means so-called black people, the dark skin, You know, what's that? Sicily, especially the Sicilians. Damn near all of them are Jakes. Even they women, okay? They're nothing but niggas trapped in Edomites' bodies. And that's in the scriptures. That again, that's actually a curse, and we're gonna read it as soon as we finish this. Okay. And see, in the kingdom, Jake gonna get they look back. Of course, we're gonna still have diversity, but ain't gonna be no Edomite looking you know. See, that only profits on this side. This is the heathen side of the heathens rule on this side. The kingdom is gonna be here on the earth, you know. The standard of beauty is going to be from the Israelites, from the so-called black and black woman. Okay, it's going to start with that, the Lord's people. Okay, the Lord today would be who you would call today the so-called African American. That's truly how Mary and Yahushua, who you ignorantly call Jesus Christ, looked, and Joseph, the house of David. The house of David were Negroes of Negroes. Okay, and that's a fact. I'll bet 100 million on it. Okay. And we could get some true scholars. Okay. You could get Bill Gates, whoever they want to debate me. We could get some scholars in there. Okay. And we'll get more. Let's say we'll just get like 40 of them. Okay. And I'd have to pick or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They would have to admit. And they would actually bring out artifacts. Okay. And pictures and all kinds of stuff. Paintings and all kind of stuff. Okay.
Look at Portuguese travel logs from the 1500s. They describe the rulers as brown and tattooed like Moors. And don't get me started on the black Buddhist monks coming up from Sri Lanka and India. They're the ones who taught martial arts to China, before Bruce Lee even became a thesis topic. That's right, Shaolin didn't start with no pale ball extras in kung fu movies. Go look up Bodhidharma. He ain't white,
West Africa, you know, people think that them West Africa, a lot of them Africans just be copying them Asians. No, that's Jake natural spirit outside of America to practice the martial arts. I'm gonna prove it right now. Think about capoeira, right? Okay, the Brazilian martial arts. That goes back to the so-called indigenous, they say the slaves, but actually you had a mixture. Actually, the indigenous were slaves. Them Negroid, at the time, they look like the same so-called black people today. They created that capoeira. If you look at capoeira, it's like kung fu on steroids. Okay, because it goes back to what? Okay, you did have the tribe of Judah, Benjamin and Levi, that was in Africa. They got shipped over here. Okay, that's the line of the house of David. So they couldn't have been the so-called the Edomite, the so-called white man and woman. So you people have idols in your house. Okay, you got idols in your house, man. Okay, and when it really get dark out here, okay, Jesus ain't gonna save you. Okay, none of that is gonna save you. Okay, if you're not calling on the true name of Yahweh and Yahushai. That's why this knowledge is so important, because this is the scriptures speak about this topic being a stumbling block and a mystery. And then when you get in Amos, the 3rd chapter, it says that the Most High revealeth nothing to nobody but his servants, the prophets. Okay, the prophets would have the 100% truth. And this is a simple concept. This is a very, very simple concept. If you look at Tiger Woods' son, right? He looked like a straight little white kid. Okay, because Tiger Woods got with a so-called a real Edomite, a real heathen woman. He didn't get with a Edomite woman that looks like, that's actually a Israelite, actually a Jake. She got soul. She got the spirit, speckled bird. He didn't get with that. He got rid of. So the child, and then his mother is a Moabite, but his dad is an Israelite. Okay, so that Israelite side of Tiger Woods is why he was great. But at the same time, you had Asians start playing golf because they wanted to take part of his Asian side. But that wasn't the side that he was. That wasn't the great side. Hey, all them golf players are Jakes. You know, all of them. Hey, it's amazing. Look, it's amazing. Who else is Jake? You got a lot of football quarterbacks. That's Jake. Peyton Manning is a Jake. You know, you got a lot of Irish actors that are Jakes that go back to the actual black people that came from Dublin, Ireland. Okay, Dublin, Ireland means lands of the black. You know, the Moorish people. Okay, Germany. That whole word Schwarz. It goes back to the again the Negroid people of the origins. That's what the word means. Literally, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? His name is Schwarz, meaning Negroid, you know, Moreno, and Neger, which goes back to the Latin word nigger, which is not the same. It actually means like the same name that Moor. It's just the German way to say, you know, he's a light-skinned nigger. He's one of the speckled birds. Okay, and now that he look older, he like a old, real light-skinned. I got family like that. Nigga with some straight hair. You got Israelites, you could damn near tell. I got aunties like that. I got one set of auntie sisters. One of them you could tell. She act like the black woman. She real light, bright. She got them hazel eyes, that straight hair. But she's the nigga woman. But her sister, she looked like the straight up white woman, like the Golden Girls. And they got the same mother and father. And then there's another sister, she looked the same way. But they spirit, they act like the black woman. And they not faking. They go back to the Irish, Macquarie. Okay, the original Irish were exiled. And they breeded with the white woman when they was ruling that land. The Celts. The Celts, and look, the Celtic sign on the NBA logo, if you look at the original one, it looks like a little Negro, the leprechaun. Okay? The Leprechaun movie was making mockery of, you know, my people, like my grandmother. My grandmother, her father especially, looked like a goddamn leprechaun. So-called black. But my grandmother's beautiful, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, her whole line. You know, they were exiled. I forget the dude's name. And they were sent to the islands, man. Okay, the people you call Jamaicans, you know, those type, you know, the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, that was those are Israelites. The tribe of Benjamin was occupying Ireland. Okay, when you go into, again, the Dark Ages, the medieval history, you had the tribe of Judah, King James. All right, he was of that line, and he knew it. He knew that he went back to Judah. Okay, and all the receipts are out there. The original, okay, if you could find the original paintings of King James, he was a so-called black man. Okay, he was not a so-called white man.
In East Asian, that man looked like he eats fufu and sparring for breakfast. Before they painted everybody pale and pretended we ain't never existed, the rulers of the East looked more like your aunties and uncles after a hot summer day. These were Jomon queens, Shang kings, Okinawan sea lords, black shoguns, the Moorish monarchs who ran the Silk Road before silk even had a price tag. But then the Meiji boys got...
You got to understand, Jake was ruling all throughout Europe and Eastern Asia all at the same time. That's why they show you the movies when the so-called white man after the Renaissance, okay, they go into the Spanish Inquisition, which is supposedly the so-called white man, the Edomites taking down the Moors. But what they don't tell you, they had to take down, Europe fell in spots because as Spain was falling, you still had Israelites ruling. You had Negroes ruling in Britain, Britannia, and those islands over there, France, and then Esau slowly took, over hundreds of years, finally, Jake came down. Jake was a lot of in-house fighting as well, and disease. Esau carried diseases. You know, so you had Jake dying from the diseases too, man. And that's a long history, man, because it's crazy. I'm surprised that, but you know, I'm not surprised because prophecy says that Esau would come out of that lower state, that caveman's state. Okay, the Most High brought him up from that state so he can rule, because that was the contract between Isaac and Esau when you go into Genesis 25. Okay, but let me get this scripture real quick. All right. Look, we've been studying for years, man. See, you people, you look on Google and see, I didn't see that, or it said something else. You cannot, okay, study off Google, man. Okay, we got brothers, our elders, ourselves, a lot of time spent at libraries, a lot of time sifting through different information. If you are gonna look, you have to sift through so many resources, okay, and then try to find out what's contradicting itself. Then you want to then you want to filter through the scriptures. Then you want to you might got to tap into some old knowledge going back to, you know, the actual niggas during that time. Like, for example, when Esau was digging up the pyramids, you know, he got all the records, he got the museums. You know, you got to be able to tap into museums. Our elders, they'll be right on site with the museums, okay, bringing out the relics of all the black people going back to Europe in certain museums, and where they, you know, they even close it off, or all the noses be chipped off. The same way they did over there in Egypt, because you got to remember who built that over there. It wasn't them Africans. It was Jake had that knowledge. You know, so they shot the noses off. And then you get on Google and everybody you type in is the so-called white man. Mozart, Shakespeare. Okay, Shakespeare was known in the records, okay, as a black Jew boy, and he didn't like to be called that. Again, because Jake knew they were of the Judite line. Okay, it wasn't until the Atlantic slave trade, slavery, that Jake lost his heritage. All right, his knowledge of who he was, and that's prophecy. Thou shalt be discontinued from thine heritage, Jeremiah the 17th chapter. But before that, even when Jake was living in foreign lands, they knew that they were of a prospective tribe. I'm a Judite. Okay, Shakespeare was known. The Elder Malcolm brings it out all the time. You know, he got all the books. Okay, he'll take you to the page, the exact number, and read it right off there with the highlight. Okay, he was known as he was dark. He was that dark skinned. You ever met a black person so dark skinned? Okay, the black Jew boy. Okay, this is Daniel 9 and 7. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces, as at this day. And we used to bring this out and use this, okay, because it means a shame. And when you go back to the book of I think it's Nehemiah and Esdras, the book of Esdras as well, Ezra, there was a big ordeal because under I think it was I forget what captivity it was. I haven't read it in a minute. When the Lord rose up the prophet, I think it was the prophet Nehemiah, he got so angry at Jake because they took on heathen wives and heathen women, and they had children with them. And he wasn't mad because of that, but he got mad to the point to where he started slapping niggas and pulling their beard hair out, pulling their hair out, snapping on them. What he was mad about is that those Israelite men were taking on these heathen women and serving their gods, worshiping their gods, and letting those women teach the Israelite children, okay, the heathen language, the heathen way. So now you have Israelites that become Gentiles because they don't follow the way of serving the actual Most High God, Yahweh. They're serving the God of, whatever God that nation, Jesus Christ, Islam, okay, the Buddha God, you know, okay. Christianity is a false God. Again, we keep telling you the Bible don't speak about Christianity. Okay, the word Christian is there, but the word simply means anointed. Okay, you got to go back to the original people, the Hebrew. Okay, Mashayakim. So if anything, you'd have to say the Mashayak. You see what I'm saying? Not the Christians, because they weren't Greek. They were speaking Greek because the Romans were in power. And they were in captivity under the Romans. Duh. Just like we speak English. Okay, the so-called black man spoke Spanish before you, okay, you Northern Kingdom. And you be all proud about that shit, okay? The Moors. They actually spoke that shit. And the Moors also created Old English. The so-called white man didn't create English. And Old English is more accurate than this modern English. This modern English is witchcraft. Okay? Okay, which is because Esau's on it. Okay, Esau made that Latin shit up, and that's a demonic language, man. Okay, that's why they show you that in them horror films. It says, O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee. This is Daniel 9:7. But unto us confusion of faces, as at this day, to the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. That represents both kingdoms, all 12 tribes. So they were scattered. And now there's confusion of face. And in those lands, they're ashamed where they're scattered. Like over there in Palestine, right? They brought it out how there's a sect of so-called black Palestinians. They're not Afro-Palestinians. Esau's not going to tell you they're Hebrew. Those are the original scattered people that was over there that got oppressed. Wherever Jake is, they're being oppressed. Read the book of Judges. I keep saying that. You'll see the pattern. How Jake is the sons of God, but they're actually the oppressed people in the earth. You know, the scriptures don't speak about the Israelites in end time prophecy ruling the earth, so they can't be the people. The end time prophecy speaks about the literal Israel scattered around the earth would be oppressed in at the bottom. Okay, the foot, the tail, not the head. And that's why they need salvation. That's what the salvation is talking about. Again, I don't know what Christianity is talking about. Christianity is just make believe. Heaven is not, okay, up in the sky. The kingdom of heaven is speaking about the rulership, the Lord taking back the earth and setting up a governing body, the 144,000. The same way among these so-called white people. You don't get to see them, but you have trillionaire families that actually run all the politicians. They run all the militaries. They run all the central banks. They own the Chinese mafia. They own all of these, the Iranian government. You know, they own the cartel. Okay. And they give them the weapons. And that's a method they've always used, going back to Rome. It's called auxiliary forces. That's one thing that Rome, that's why it tells you in Daniel's the 4th chapter. Okay, the 7th chapter, I believe it's the 4th verse. It speaks about how that dragon was different, okay, from all of the rest of the nations. The way they use warfare. Because what they would do is take their subjects and make the army out of them and use them. And that will kill two birds with one stone. Okay, they'll be divided. and you could use them to destroy their own. You keep that division, and you can use them as a fall guy. You could point the finger at him, and you could run off with the shit in the back. You see? And you got you dumb niggas, okay, you idolize that. And see, they're gonna be used and weaponized when, all right, during martial law to, unalive a lot of you, okay, you jakes, man. Just like the Taliban, just like them different, okay, C to the I to the A constructed groups, ISIS. Okay, they were all bought and paid for by the US government. And they'll actually tell you that. Okay, it says, as it is this day to the men of Judah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and to all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them. I just said that. We're scattered throughout all these countries. And we've been scattered throughout all these countries going back to the ancient world. Again, that's why the so-called white man's school institutions wants to just place you in Africa. Because those Hamitic people over there are actually cooked. But then you got our people over there. And you know when it's our people, because you got to understand, they bred with them over there too. Like them West Africans, Nigerians. They look like the same so-called black people over here in America. Okay. You got the tribe of Benjamin over there. You got Levi over there. The Haitians. Those are the Levites. They look just like, all throughout West Africa, those are Israelites. And then you actually have among the Ethiopians, Eritreans, you got Jake scattered over there. In Lebanon, you got a lot of Jake mingled over there. They call them the Afro-Lebanese, but they're actually Hebrew. You got the Hebrew, the Afro-Mexicans. Really is Hebrew Mexicans. Okay, so being scattered throughout these countries, that's why I just brought up that African shit. Pseudoscience wants to place the so-called Negro man, okay, who the Heavenly Father and his son actually is, and wants to just place you among the Hamites in Africa. Why isn't all the talent of culture of America coming from Africa? The complete American culture, from the music to everything, is truly the Israelite culture. Why isn't that coming straight from Africa then? I'll tell you why. Because the bulk of Israelites are here in America, but they're also scattered throughout the earth. So let's finish this. It says, and that are afar off through all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespasses that they have trespassed against you. And this was when Moses, right? When the children of Israel were in the wilderness, that was our people. When we were all together, right? When we was actually in our right mind. I'm going to go there right now. What the Heavenly Father told Moses to tell the Israelites, and what he put in stone, right, was that under this blood covenant that I'm going to make between you as my people, I just delivered you from the Egyptians and brought you into the wilderness to serve me. And I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And I'm going to lead you into the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the most resourceful land on the planet Earth. Okay, at the time, it's a desert because we ain't there. Right? Under that covenant, there was a contractual agreement that if you fall away from this covenant, there's over 600 laws, statutes, and commandments. Okay, but we didn't even have to keep it perfectly. Okay, but Jake just forgot about it. Jake didn't want to. He said, if you get to the point where you perpetually fall away into a heathenistic state, okay, look at the women. Look at the women of our nation. Prostitution and stuff, that's heathen. Okay, now our people do it more than anybody. But that's in the curses. In Deuteronomy 28, we finna get it. It says that the woman of your the sweet and tender woman. Let's get it. Okay, the curses are alive in effect, and this is why we're crying out for the kingdom. Okay, but let's read first. Oh, here it is. Deuteronomy 28:64. The Most High put a curse. You know, people speak about being cursed, you know, witchcraft. That's not really nothing. Like, okay, when the Lord say He gonna do something, He gonna do it. And this is how you can trace who the people are as well. These curses don't fit the tiny hats. Okay, all the tiny hats, they live up in the best parts of the country. Okay, they're the biggest welfare recipients on the earth. That's why they're rich everywhere they go. They own everything. That's not the Lord didn't say the kingdom of heaven is now. Okay, when you have pedal rings and no, you people are out of your mind, man. You know. This is Deuteronomy 68 and 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other. I mean, this is not rocket science. If an Israelite man goes to any nation, if I go to Thailand and you know, shit, I'm at the bar, you know, get me a Thailand woman. I bear seed. I plant the seed in the incubator. It's gonna the thing that's gonna come out of that incubator is my seed, my spirit. It don't matter. Tiger Woods is a good example. His daddy was a so-called black man. Okay, that's why he could take the ball, dribble it, and then just hit. Okay, he did things different. Ye are the salt of the earth. He made golf cool. That's why I got into it. I was on the golf course every single day. I was on the golf team. You know, this is and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth, even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods. Christianity, Islam, free will, spirituality, the traditions of men. Okay. It says, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and even wouldest known. All of these religions, okay, even the tribes that was over here before Roman Catholicism came to America was still more on point than Christianity. Okay? Because you really don't even know where that Christianity comes from. That Christianity comes from several different eras. Okay, and when the pure religion, the original Christians, where that movement started, again, like I said, the Hebrew people, the Mashayakim, the real anointed ones. Again, the word Christian is trying to say Mashayak in another language. Christ, that's a title. That's not the Hebrew man who was born, who the angel told Mary, Mariah was her name, a Hebrew word, something to that effect. The angel told her Yahawashai, okay, because the letter J wasn't created up until the 1600s, and even the letter U, okay, wasn't even created. Okay, the Hebrew that they spoke, the Hebrew Israelites, okay, you didn't have a Joshua, okay, you didn't have those vowels. You didn't have Yeshua. Now you had the Yah vowel, okay, but you didn't have the U. The only vowels you have in the original Hebrew, okay, which these modern fake Hebrew people, they don't speak the literal Hebrew. I was just talking to the white man about that the other day, and he was confounded that I knew what the fuck I was talking about. He was an ish. He was a small hat. Oh, yep, he sure was. Yep, at camp. And he had to keep his mouth closed because he didn't have nothing to say. I told him, he tried to come up there being all slithery. I told him the true Israelites, the house of Judah, the house of David, King Solomon never spake the Yiddish, ever. Ever. Okay? They spoke the Lashon Kodash. That Yiddish was a made up language, you know, when they decided to fake that they were the people. Okay, and that whole Holocaust was a stage to try to seem like these curses that I'm reading about, like they were the downtrodden. Okay, and then they were implanted over there in our land under the Balfour Declaration in 1948. Okay, and that whole story was concocted to say, oh, these poor people, let's put them. So you people are zombies, man. And okay, you can do the research. You just got to dig, because the American college, school, these universities originated from Bible scholarly. Okay, Jake created all that. The Oxford, Cambridge. Believe it or not, put hundreds of millions on it. The so-called black man opened up those colleges. And it was originally the study because those were the Israelites. That's why you got all those paintings throughout Europe of the original saints being so-called black people. Okay, and what do you Northern Kingdom have in your houses? You have Edomites. You have idols in your house. The Lord's people was never Edomites. Okay, Deuteronomy 64. Let's read it again. And the Lord shall scatter thee. This is a curse. Let me go up to 15 to prove it, because I know you don't believe me. This is why they speak about our people like, why these people all messed up? That's the state of the nation of Israel, okay, in end time prophecy. And this is why the elect needs to be saved out of this. Our people are cooked. It's Deuteronomy 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy prophets, thy God, and really the voice of the Lord is his prophets, to observe and do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee to this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And remember, this is a record of where we come from. This is the beginning story of, again, all over again, the fall of Adam. Adam represented the fall of the sons of God. He broke the commandment, and it just wasn't one thing. Okay, it was over a process of time. Okay, that story was over a process of time. We go into it. This story of our nation, okay, like that movie Thor. Okay, he's cast it down. Zeus cast him down. That goes back to our people that was occupying Athens, Greece, that were slaves in Greece. All of that history is tracked through the Bible, the Hasmonean dynasty. You had Negroes all throughout Greece and made Greece great. Okay, because you know, Jake, once they in there, they don't just stay slaves. They get all up into politics. They get all up into the Olympics. Okay, Jake ran the Olympics. Jake ran the gladiatory. Okay, who runs the gladiatory today? And see, you got to remember, in the ancient world, you didn't have all these light-skinned Jakes. Okay, even just 100 years ago, all the Latin tribes looked like so-called black people. You know, the Tainos, the Puerto Ricans. Okay, before all this whitewashing, it looked like so-called black people. You know, I mean, okay, you get miseducated in this country. So let's go down to one of the curses. That's where we were at, and that was just one of them. Okay. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth, even unto the other. And there thou shalt, okay, we got that. Among these nations shall thou find no ease. Okay, you got niggas getting deported, singled out. And among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrows of mind. And this happened all throughout history, when our people pretty much turned to evil. Just like when you go into the Mayans and the Incas and the North American Gadites, okay, Israel, they come from the east. Those were, okay, that's the fulfillment of the book Hosea, 2nd Ezra's 13th chapter. Tracks how we got here. They didn't come on the barren straight. That's pseudoscience to try to disconnect Israel. Okay, they were into idolatry. And then who did they see come upon the shores? Okay, the Edomite. Okay, an ancient beef. That's why I keep saying, go read the book of Judges. That's what the Lord does. When Jake is in line with the Lord, okay, Yahweh Shemal Shai, and they know their power, and they're not into idol worship, they actually rule over all their enemies. They rule over all the nations. They become wealthy. Okay, they grab the land. They own the land. Okay, and then when they turn their back on being an Israelite, and they start worshiping the God of, like the Native Americans, and them sacrifices that they was doing sacrifices and shit. Okay, the Lord, read the book of Judges. The Lord sent the enemy. Because put it like this: if you're the sons of God on the earth, the chosen nation, just by default, the rest of the nations actually want you out of there. Okay, and the Lord warned us. He said, look, if you turn your back on me, I'm gonna just go to my place and I'm gonna stay there until you seek my face. So pretty much, you're not gonna have no hedge. Your enemy's gonna just get you. Okay, that's why Jake has no power. Again, where are the gang members to stop ICE? They ain't gonna do it because they know better. Okay, and it's prophecy. Okay, we are in captivity, man. The Israelite people are not. Okay, the Bible has not been fulfilled. Okay, you can't close the Bible and say, oh, that's it. No. Okay, there's prophecies in the book of Genesis that we're still waiting on. Okay, for the Lord to come back and put us back, as the sons of God. All right, put us back in those bodies, those literal bodies. Okay, where you don't die, you're impenetrable. You can manipulate the elements around you. Okay, the story of Adam is a long drawn out history, which is summed up and compressed, and he represents the sons of God, okay, and their fall. Because before death, okay, these people had power. That was the perk. They were given the authority over the earth, the animals, the nations, okay? And Adam got weak to his woman, okay? Because women are of the earth. They're of the terrain, okay? They're carnal beings. They seek pleasure and they're easy to manipulate. But a man is, the Lord said his spirit dwell with the tabernacles of man. What is your tabernacle? Your body. Okay, this is why men build. Men are in charge. Okay, but what man is in charge right now? The Edomite man. The earth was given into the hands of the wicked. Job 9:24. He's not supposed to be in charge. That's the problem. Okay, but the fact that the sons of God are under the curses in a fallen state, okay, living as mortals, all right? Psalms 82, ye are gods, but shall die as men. We're not supposed to be dying as men. And that's the story of Adam, okay? The fall of Adam, okay? Which Adam was just a particular man chosen out of the Adamites. The word Adam, the reason why I say Adamites, I forget what that word mean, but it means like the people. The word Adam, okay, the Hebrew word Adam means from the ground, from the earth. So all men and women come from the ground. So they wasn't so-called white people. The richest soil is dark. Okay, and the word human means, hue means color and man. Okay, colored man, right? The Lord took one man out of all of these so-called dark-skinned people and started a bloodline of a chosen. Okay, I'm gonna deal with this line. That's why when they had Cain, right? Cain was of that line, but Cain represented the wicked. Okay, he would go off to create the sons of the wicked, because remember he had sons. Lamech. Lamech was a murderer as well. Okay, my bad. I know this is going in, but we're gonna bring out two more. I want to bring out this other scripture. Thy wife. Okay. Am I lying about this right here? Nah, we don't have to get that. Let's get so in Revelation 7, the scattered people, I don't need to get it. But when it said nations, tongues, I want to get something. Damn, man, I hope I don't forget where this is at right now. It's not Galatians. Man, 1 second. In Acts, the 2nd chapter, you had Israelites that were scattered. I mean, that would all come from their respective lands into Judea 3 times a year. I think it was 1 to 2, 3 times a year, because it was Israelite custom that no matter where you lived, you know, in Central Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, parts of Africa, island, okay, you made your way to the motherland, okay, which is Jerusalem. The scriptures say Jerusalem is the mother of us, not Africa, right? Where was I going? Oh, in Acts, the 2nd chapter, it proves that all of these Israelites, even though they came from other countries and were speaking other languages, they knew they were Israelites, and they would go to keep those customs of high holy days, okay, which was mandated in the law. So imagine the Israelites that didn't know they were Israelites in the other lands because their parents didn't care, and now they blended in with the local communities, the heathens. That's what the history period of the Hellenized Jews, the Hellenized Israelites of the Greek culture. You can read about that. They were Hellenized into Greek culture. That's why in the New Testament it's also written in Greek. That's the history. Okay, who was on the scene when the Lord was crucified? The Romans. Where did the Romans stem out of? The Greeks. Where did the Greeks stem out of? Okay, the Negroid people in Europe, the Minoans and the sons of Japheth. There's another term, I forget, Minoans, and I forget the other word. You know, because the so-called white man is an Edomite. You see, and he's a vagabond. He's running from, the scriptures literally say he's a vagabond and a fugitive. He's running from that nationality because what comes behind it. Okay, when the Lord returns, he's coming to a world, like Elder Malcolm says, that is ruled by Esau Edom. Okay, and he's going to have to address Esau Edom's military, his air force, his space force. Okay, why you think they setting up? So this man has deceived the whole world. He's hidden this. This is the true education. This is way more important than a degree. You got niggas running around here talking about they don't even know who the fuck they are. And all of this, some strange stuff is about to happen. Okay, and they're not gonna know what the hell is going on. Okay, the truth is stranger than fiction. Okay, this devil has been hiding everything from you people so that he can control you and keep you within his box. Okay, and have you zombified, smoking cigarettes and drinking Pepsi, man, and eating hot Cheetos, watching Netflix, hypersexualized, profane, homosexuals, anxiety, mental, stress, poverty. These are all, the attributes of what Satan, the devil, would do. Okay, the people that are running this thing are responsible. Okay, not the poor. Okay, not the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Even though our people are wicked as all hell. Okay, really, if they wanted to cut all that shit out, they could end all of this bullshit with you niggas, man. Okay, but it profits them that you do wickedness so they can stay in power. Because that's how they got in power. Because you niggas are so fucking wicked. The Most High casted you out of the land. We just brought that out at camp. Baruch the 3rd and the 4th chapter. The Lord kicked your ass out the land, like he going back to Deuteronomy 28. We was just there. That was one of the curses. Okay? The land that I gave you, you shall see it no more. And you should go into slavery on ships. Okay, Deuteronomy 28:68. You see? And there's a particular scripture I'm looking for, and then I can get out of here. But I'll be forgetting. 1 second. I always forget where this is at. Damn. 1 second. Because I'm going to hit it right on the head. Which proves you have to filter all his history through the scriptures. Because you got to understand, in the ancient world, you didn't have a civilization named the Iraqians, the blacks. That's a color, man. Okay, the browns, the yellow. That's not a nationality, man. What were these people being called? 2000 AD. Who were they? No, I mean BC. Okay, not 80. You know, they so-called reset everything after the timeline. You know, when the Lord was born, something like, and that's spiritual actually, because we used to go at a. Okay, really, our people documented that. You have something called the Hebrew calendar. Okay, before the Greeks, when they came into power, what this devil don't tell you, they pretty much took all our knowledge and built from there. You got to understand, they came from the Hebrews. They came from two so-called black people. It's tracked in Genesis 25. This is why they're running from that nationality. Okay, all throughout time, they've stole all the dark-skinned nations' nationality to run from who they are. That's what Cain did. Okay, it's the same spirit on this dude. Because yeah, our people are wicked, but guess what? Just like Cain killed Abel, this devil is so wicked, all right? Purposely poison the food. Bro, you don't know how many, look, you don't even understand, bro. You don't understand how wicked, even when you're dealing with drugs, okay? These Negroes and Latinos, they're set up as fall guys. The real niggas that, you know, you think this devil don't know niggas got submarines and shit? Nigga, they doing the real transactions. Niggas in ties and shit, nigga. Corny ass Edomites. You can bitch slap in the mouth at any time. You know? That's ruling by the sword. You can only get that information in the Bible. Okay, because how are these Edomites ruling? Like a Bill Gates. The sword. They got the missiles. They got the you know, they got the whole system is weaponized. You see what I'm saying? Against Jake. They got the military. That's their ultimate sword. Drones. Who gave them the sword? Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. For prophecy's sake. That's a part of the script. Here you go. You're the villain. Build these missiles. Isaiah 54. We always read it. You see? I'm trying to get this last scripture and we're going to be out. Because there's so many scriptures I could bring out. I didn't want to do detail going into the Gentile topic. Okay, I just wanted to show you from a historical point of view, because we could actually go into scriptures and show you and exhaust the word Gentile and the word Greek. All right. And when you go into certain chapters, it'll literally tell you for the word Hellenistas. What is it talking about? It's talking about the Hellenized Greeks. And when you go into history, those are so-called black people that were what was that time? The Hasmonean, the Hasmonean dynasty. When you go into that time, the Greeks, after the death of Alexander the Great, they went into Judea when our people was still there, and they pretty much made them convert by the sword, just like they did when they came to America. They said they was hanging the babies, they was killing the women, the babies. They said if you keep these Israelite customs, you gonna die. And so a lot of people just sold out, you know, and generation by generation, they doing gay shit, orgies, okay, showing off all their goddamn skin, half gyms, naked, That's the history of the Hellenized Negroes that were in Greece. But a lot of culture came out of that. And today they whitewashed that, man. You know, just like it again, who's in all the gladiatorial events in America? Jake. Football, soccer, boxing, UFC. And again, in the ancient world, people with dark skin, even if you was like a Issachar, like the so-called Mexican today, right? I'm gonna use Puerto Rican. In the ancient world, they're the tribe of Ephraim. They all was black. You had light skin then. We always had light skinned people among us. Again, going back to Jake, always dealing with heathen women. And that was a part of our custom. You had concubines and then you had your wives. A concubine would be considered in Israelite custom a woman of a heathen nation. You couldn't make her a wife. She was your wife in the sense that if you was popping her, wasn't nobody else supposed to be popping her. But she didn't have wife settings over the Israelite woman. The only woman that could really be your wife that you technically joined to is another Israelite woman, because that Israelite woman would actually be serving the same God. Okay, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. The heathen will be serving Dagon or something, the god of the fish god or the Moabite, you know. So that would be your cake and ice cream with the sprinkles. Okay. See, the scriptures give you order of how in this society it's just a free it's just a no. Society is supposed to be governed off thus saith the Lord, and that would be deemed wicked on this society. So you people are not okay. You don't follow the Bible, man. You Christians don't follow the Bible. You don't even address the fact that a man that's his God-given right to have more than one woman. Okay? And a woman can't. Complete hypocrisy. That's in the scriptures. All over the scriptures. Okay? And the Lord didn't liberate you from the law. Let me find this last scripture, man. I know this lesson just way too long, man. 1 second, man. Damn. It's actually two. Damn. I know I'm about to find it. 1 second, man. Galatians. Man, that's crazy. Peter. Man, let's see. It might be here. Oh, there it is. Here it is. Here it is. All of that time, man, looking for this. I'm gonna remember it right now. The reason I bring this out right here, we'll go straight to the scriptures and filter out the topic of what I'm talking about. Israelites that live in other nations. Okay, that'll be like you saying I'm a Puerto Rican, or I'm a so-called black person, but I'm gonna move to China. And I'm gonna be Hellenized in China culture. And I don't ever want to come back to China. I'm gonna get a Chinese wife, and I'm gonna put my seed in the Chinese woman. And guess what? My seed more than likely he ain't gonna get no black woman. He gonna get another Chinese woman, which she could be a Jake, but it wouldn't matter because she gonna look like a Chinese woman. So that's second generation. That motherfucker look like a straight Chinese. But they gonna say, man, he acting black. His seed line is Jake, the sons of Jacob. Not no Africans. I'm not African. But if you're indoctrinated in America, he's African. No, I'm indigenous to America because my ancestors were Hebrews, okay, that came over here to America and was their nationality was stripped and changed and rewritten and called Native Americans and Seminole Indians. Okay, these are people that spoke broken Hebrew because what? They were Israelites. And they didn't speak Yiddish. They spoke the Hebrew that only the ancient Hebrew Israelites, Yahweh and Yahushai is the exact name that when the Most High spoke to Moses, when it says I am, it said he is Yahweh. That's what Yahweh means. He is. So when Moses told the people, he didn't say I am. Okay, they said, "What? Who is this God's name that you say He's going to deliver us? Who you talking about? What his name? He got to have a name." He said, "Yahweh," which means He is. Okay, this is 1 Peter 1:1. Peter. Okay, and that Peter was his surname. Just like in America, I woke up to the fact I'm an Israelite. I got a Hebrew name, Makwadash, but I got a surname as well. There's nothing new under the sun. Cliff, I got a surname. I got an English name. But Peter had a Hebrew name as well. You got to remember, they were Hellenized. They were under the Greco-Roman authority. That's who was running the show. Even when the Lord was on the scene. So they couldn't just speak Hebrew. They had to be custom in the trading languages, the languages of those times, which were Arabic, Greek, and the Hebrew. That's why on the cross, right, the Lord title, King of Kings, was written in 3 different languages because certain Israelites that were unlearned, they might have just spoke the Hebrew. But if you was actually doing something in society, you had to know those languages. So the Israelites that spoke Aramaic and Greek, and that, they were actually making a mockery out of the Lord when they put that up there, the Romans. But they etched that on the cross because you had a society with a mixture of people. Because the Romans, that's how they did. The scriptures speak about that. The mingled people, how they heap everybody into themselves. So you just like today, you got different people in the land that are not supposed to be there. It says, he removed the ancient landmarks, as the scriptures say. This is the point, and we're going to get out of here. Peter, an apostle, and he was an Israelite. Peter, an apostle, I hate saying that word, Jesus Christ. Okay, that's not the name at all. Now that's the psyop when they say, okay, the Bible, they've been rewritten the Bible. I don't believe it. That's a literal psyop, and you can trace it. You can actually get the scrolls. Okay, they got something called the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, you can actually go to the museums. You can get into the oldest scrolls of the Bible. A good example is the book of Isaiah. You have over 2,000 copies of the ancient scrolls of the book of Isaiah itself, because you got to understand that was a ancient custom for scribes to continuously, and they made sure they preserved, okay, for generations. But you're going to see the name Yahweh in the Paleo Hebrew. And it's amazing because the Paleo Hebrew, actually the scriptures say that the Most High speaks that, which is no wonder why that was the original language. When you read about the Tower of Babel, that's what the people were speaking. It's called the pure language, Zephaniah 3:9. That's what they were speaking before the Lord scattered the languages. And so the Lord preserved his name all the way to the end. Through who? Shem. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And now we have his name. We don't need to speak full Hebrew. So the true biblical Israelite, the chosen in 2025, the hopeful elect would know the name of the Most High. And it's all spiritual. Okay, has the Lord given you a gift from on high? Has he initiated your soul? This is the point. Peter, an apostle of Yahushai, to the strangers. Those strangers are Israelites scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, And Bithynia and all of those places are within Asia, whether it's Eastern, Western, or Central. Remember, Europe is a new social construct. It's not real. It doesn't exist. It's a part of pseudoscience to create scientific racism and demean, okay, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans as primitive, violent, dumb people like beasts, okay, to where you can slaughter them and you're justified because they're not civil and they haven't built anything. Okay, that's what Europe was constructed off of the back of pseudoscience, so that you can bring in the Cro-Magnon man, okay, Lucy, that they so-called dug up in Africa. It never happened, which was half monkey and half woman. And then you can classify all the dark nations as black when they're separate and the Negroes are separate. Cancel out the sons of God. Say that you're the true JOOs. Okay? Pseudoscience. And that's what Europe does. It's actually Western and Eastern Asia. All throughout the history, you never seen Europe in any maps. It was always categorized Asia, Western, Central, or that was a new thing, all right, as this devil deceives the world. Because we're not even in 2025. Once the Hebrew calendar was changed to the Gregorian, we're under like a Julian, okay? All right, the original way was on point. Okay, and that makes sense because the word math goes back to our people. It goes back to the Hebrew word, and we established that the original, the Paleo Hebrew, goes back to our line, our people. Okay, which the Hebrew word is amath for math, which means truth. Okay, and one thing about math, 1 + 1 is 2. So these people can't be the orators of math and science. Okay, that's the reason why they pretty much, okay, the scriptures say they have a deep heart. They search out everything. The fact that we went into slavery, okay, they got math. Okay, that's why they were able to, and they just, shit, once you take over, you got all the secrets. It says elect according to the foreknowledge of Yahweh, or God, the Father, through sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience. Dang, is this it? Yeah, but that was the point. To the strangers scattered. Let me get the blue letter real quick. I want to look up that word scattered. I wanted to point out those different countries, and then I can go to Acts 2 and finish it real quick. Let's get that blue letter real quick. Look up that word. This lesson is too long, man, but I freestyled it. So I didn't compress it because I would have had the scriptures ready. Everything, you know, straight to the point. But so I got to think of what I'm going to bring out. Sometimes it's better to prepare it. Okay. Let's look up the word strangers. Okay. Alien, right? What do they call the so-called Mexicans right now? They call them illegal aliens, right? But they're actually, okay, they were actually here before this government, the country was constructed as the U.S. government, 50 states. That's why they say it in, you know, indigenous. But the thing is this, it's deeper than that. The true original indigenous are the Negroes that's over there. They call them Afro-Mexicans. But under replacement history, under pseudoscience, they call them Afro-Mexicans. Again, somehow tying these people back to Africa as if they were just planted here. No, you actually had Israelites that were put on ships and came over here, which wasn't nearly as much as the actual so-called black people that was already here. inhabiting in these different lands. And then when the so-called white man came, he started putting his seed. Everybody started lightening up. And then we already had lighter skinned people. Okay, that doesn't come just from Esau, even in the ancient world. Different shades, eyes, hair, You got a lot of so-called dark-skinned people with some soft-ass curly hair. I got that super, my shit is like, my hair is like the Lord. Okay, this is a alien, right? And you got to think about the actual country in the ancient world, Jerusalem, right? Once you became, heathenistic as far as like idol worship and doing wickedness, witchcraft, you became an alien from an Israelite. You became a Gentile. You became a foreigner. That's why we say the Israelite foreigners. But then on the physical side, you might not even live in Judea. That's why we read it. It said it's scattered throughout Asia, Cappadocia. You'd have to be stupid to think that a nation of millions of people gonna stay in one. The Lord created the earth. Okay, that was the story of Adam. Okay, he placed man eastward in Eden, it represents the Fertile Crescent over there in Jerusalem, near the Euphrates River, not Africa. In pseudoscience, you can cancel out the Most High and just say the Big Bang, natural selection and Darwinism. And even those guys themselves admitted before they died that they were lying. Darwin, a resident foreigner, a pilgrim. You see, so this is speaking about the custom of an Israelite today. Our people are not keeping customs of being an Israelite. They're gangbanging. They're doing prostitution. Okay, in the ancient world, they would all be executed. Okay, you was a thug in Israelite culture, you get executed by they take you to the elders of the city. They'd have a council about you. Okay, if you was committing adultery, you was sleeping with other men's wives, or you was a woman, you was cheating on your husband, they would burn both of you in front of everybody. Okay, that was a righteous thing, and that way, okay, the next nigga see, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. We're not gonna have no homosexuals. Okay, yeah, it might hurt to get this nigga, but we have to, because we can't have our sons growing up like Shanae. Okay, and this society sponsors that. Okay, this is why you have pedos, man, because it's a profane spirit. It's spirits, man. It's evil spirits. That's why this place got to be destroyed. Okay, so that's the word for strangers. Let's read it again. Peter, an apostle of Yahushai, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. And now we're going to hit to the point real quick. Check this out. First, I'm going to hit Romans, and then I'm going to go to Acts. Now, this going to kill any argument right here. Because Paul, right, which Paul is his surname, he wasn't a white man named Paul. Okay, he had a Hebrew name. Okay, but in translated, into English, he had a surname as well. All right. He said that he was a Roman, but at the same time, he said, but he was an Israelite. So let's make it make sense. Because he was a Roman citizen, but his bloodline was a Hebrew Israelite, which goes back to the people during the time of Moses. That bloodline. Okay, because that bloodline before the Israelites go back to, the original Syrians, all the way back to Noah, all the way back to Adam. Okay, through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You just rewind. These are real people, man. That in the super elite know that. In the ancient world, everybody knew this history. You didn't have no big, military grade indoctrination camp, school system, fraudulent news, history, rewriting of history. Not up until the devil came into power. He deceived the whole earth. That's a prophecy in Revelations. This is Romans 9 and 3. For I wish that myself were accursed from Yahushua for my brethren, for Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh. So what Paul is saying, he wished that he could take on the curses of his people according to the flesh, the Israelites. Because Paul was an Israelite. He's finna say it. Who are Israelites? You see in the 4th verse, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises. So where are you Christians? What are you talking about? That, and this is the New Testament. It's for everybody. It said for the Israelites do all this stuff pertain. This is the New Testament. So is it contradicting itself? No. You just don't have no understanding. And this is why people in the world don't believe in the Bible, because of Christianity. You people don't break down the Bible the correct way. And it is confusing when you breaking it down. Okay? And you don't even know the history and what was actually implemented. You'll say, you'll let these people out here that don't believe in the Bible say, oh yeah, it's been plagiarized. And you don't have nothing to say because you don't even know. You don't even know what's been plagiarized in it. All you got to do is understand the Bible is written in code. It says the same things over and over again from front to back in a different way, allegory, parable, but it also, if you understand the left hand, all this pagan shit, you can see where it is in the Bible and how they tried to implement it. And that's actual factual history. When you go into the Nicene Council, that's where Christianity comes from. Going back to Constantine, because the Bible wasn't a household item. It wasn't up until King James, which was a so-called black man, and he was a righteous man. They tried to lie on him when he died, demonize him, but he wanted it to be a household item. And he knew he was a Judite of the line of Judah. And the way he translated the Bible was so immaculate. The Spirit of the Lord was with him. That was when Jake was still, that was right before the fall of, he was ruling over Britain. Jake was still in power at the time. And I believe the Lord preserved him so he could finish. He used 70 interpreters, all Negroes, all Jakes that were masters in the Greek, the Greek, the Arabic, and I forget the other language. But the way he did it, he was so cold. So you people don't understand how well he comprised his Bible. He split them up in teams. I forget if it was like 3 or 4s. For each word, I forget how long it took. It took a minute. This is why, Europe was falling, all right, to the wild man, to Esau. But he wasn't done translating the scriptures. So for one word, you had 4 interpreters that had to come to an agreement. So imagine you're a master in this language, but whatever this word is not just going to be signed and sealed by you. You need 4 other scholarly admissions. That's how it was translated. He was a genius. Okay, and that's not the spirit of the so-called white man. The spirit of the so-called white man is to lie and hide shit. So you Christians, you don't know what the hell is going on, man. You don't know what the Nicene Council is. You're about to keep Christmas. Oh, I love God, but you're about to worship a high-level satanic, the true rituals that's being done by these pedos and these Edomites that are in power is bloody, man. Okay, but you're partaking in the celebration of it, man. Xmas, which means to X out the children, the Israelites. That's what that actually symbolized. The true Christians, which are the Israelites, to X them out. Mass killings, man, of the Israelites, man. That's really what that's going into. Okay, set up some fucking Satan, Kris Kringle and demons. Okay, Santa, really, when you break the word down, is Satan, man. Krampus, man. So the super elite, they sacrificing babies and shit on that day, man. You people about this, you celebrated Easter. That all goes back to the Nicene Council. The name Jesus Christ goes back to the Nicene Council. Actually the Biblical Destruction Group. But even in that Nicene Council, you just have Jake speaking, Latin, Old English, and all of that. But they were putting all of those Mediterranean religions and shit and masking it and putting it to the ancient Egyptian, idolatry into the scriptures. These holidays, man. Okay, again, the scriptures speak about putting a tree in your house. That's an ancient idol worship custom. It represents the phallic symbol, which is the penis. That goes back to ancient Sumerian, Mediterranean idol worship. That's why everybody's hypersexualized. That's a vibration. That's a spirit. The demon. These homo niggas they got some of the strongest demons on them. Okay. Once you get to that point, you gone. It says, who are Israelites to whom pertaineth. We read that. You see? Oh yeah, let's get this. Because I wanted to show how he said he was a Roman. I think you got to go to 10. Because once I read this, I'm done. It says, this is 7. Neither because they. Oh, okay, let's go down to 8. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. That was it. The point I wanted to make, I forget where that's at. Paul, when he got into legal trouble for teaching the word, how did he get out of being executed? By the governor, I forget who it was. They was going to execute him. They couldn't just do, he got beat for teaching in the name of Yahushua. And the people that beat him almost got in trouble because it was against the law for you to beat a Roman citizen. Okay? Just like, certain American back in the day, you being American, you go to a foreign country, it was kind of like hands off. You touch them, we'll send the military over here because we gotta get them back. But right here he said he's an Israelite, and that all the blessings in the covenant, the promises, right? It belongs to the people of his kinsmen, which are Israelites. Okay, and we just read that about those strangers being scattered. Now let's go to Acts 2 to finish it. That's what I meant to do. You're going to read about Israelites right here that are living under these other nations. This is Acts 2 and 5. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under the heaven. Hone in on every nation under the heaven. That means he might live 1,000 miles northeastern Europe. This is what was going on, during the time of even the ancient world. The so-called black man's history. Again, they want to just stick you in the mud hut in Africa. Look, Africa is impoverished because the so-called white man, he owns all the resources of that land. And he takes the best, he takes the substance which brings him trillions of dollars and the best parts of the land. So what do you think the people are going to have outside of, they're not going to have the resources to to have the minerals to create wire. You know what I'm saying? Wire and the chemicals you need to build the structures. Because in the ancient world, those people had the stuff. They were building structures and palaces, and believe it or not, okay, but they had some substance. But if he could just stick you in a mud hut, okay, destroy you, and then point the finger and say you never did nothing, then that's what he'll do. But you can't classify us with the Hamitic people, the Negro. We look alike, but they don't have no rhythm. They don't grow beards like us. They don't grow afros like us. And I'm not African. Now I come from the continent. Judea is on the continent of Africa. Central Asia, right on the tip of the continent of Ham, of, because it's not Africa. That's not the original name of Africa. Okay, that continent right now is named after a Roman general, after Edomite. You see? Okay, so we established that Jews, and there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under the heaven. Now, the Jews in this time were the so-called black man, the same man you see today. It says, now when this was noised abroad, let's get to the point. Here it is. Now it said nations. It's going to name the nations. Parthians and Medes. That's dealing like going toward like Iran, the Persians. The Medes, Russia, going up to Eastern Europe. So you had Israelites coming back to Judea. Like I said, if back then when you knew that, yeah, I'm a descendant of the Israelites. I don't live in the land no more, but it's customary we go down to the land to keep these high holy days, not a holiday. Okay, not to bow down to the Western Wall. It says not to be Christians, not to own a couple TV stations and celebrate and dig tunnels and do rituals with babies. We don't know. Okay, this is when they knew the name of the Lord, because they wasn't colonized by Esau, Edom at the time. Okay, Parthians and Medes. So it said they were Jews, but they're coming from these other nations. And Elamites, today the East Indian, okay, the nigga that work at 7-Eleven, that's the Elamite. So you had Israelite, and to this very day, you got something called Afro Indians. But again, those are the Israelites. See, what they wrote out of history is that our people, the Hebrew Negroid man, the Negroid Asiatic so-called black man, the Negro man, went throughout the whole world, what they would call indigenous today. Okay, it wasn't because of no spirit chucking. It was because they was already on boats and selling. Again, they want to put you back in Africa. Okay, the only reason we in Africa today like that is going back to 70 AD. You can go into the history. When Rome came into Judea and they just put the shit down. And that's in the scriptures. The Lord spoke about it. The abomination that maketh desolate. Okay, because Esau is the abomination that maketh desolate. He went into the temple, and the heathen were not supposed to destroy the temple. And what did he do? He erected something called the Ark of Titus. This is in your history books. After the Lord died and the disciples were crucified, finally in 70 AD, starting at 66 AD, you had something called the wars between the Romans and Jake. And then in 70 AD, they went in there because it was hard to take Jake down. They was masters at guerrilla warfare. But it was prophecy. They had to go down. So these are Israelites in other lands that weren't in Judea. They're coming back to Judea, the headquarters, to worship the Lord on the high holy days. It said the Medes, the Elamites, the dwellers of Mesopotamia, meaning all throughout the Mesopotamia. Today is nothing but Arabs over there. Edomites and Arabs. You call them Arabs and shit. But at the time, you had a lot of you had Jake all in those areas, and it wasn't racist like it is today. Cause see, Esau is ruling, and in Judea and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Pergia and Pamphylia, and in Egypt, Egypt always had a large community of Negroes, even after the fall of it, and even today, a lot of them are Arabs. But like some of them that come to America, they look kind of Arab, like light skinned, but they act like so-called black people. That's because of you had why you think when the angel told Joseph and Mary to go flee into Egypt, the book of Isaiah speaks about that. For some reason, they loved Egypt. The scriptures talk about that, how they always want to go back to Egypt. Jake, way after the fall of the original Egyptians, when they came out of Egypt, you still had a lot of Jake over there. Jake went back and started communities. And so today you got Egyptians that look like so-called white people, Arab, but then you'll have them Egyptians that act like so-called black people. And you can see it in their eyes that they're the descendants. Okay, and they act like it. They act like Jake. Okay. Cretes and Arabians. Okay. So that's it right there. You know, Salaki, I didn't prepare this, so it probably took a minute for me to navigate it. Yeah, I could have compressed it, but you know, I just wanted to show that video. I could have shown you a whole lot more videos. I just didn't prepare it. I could have went through these videos, but that was a good example because all your favorite animals, really, animals. You know what? I'm gonna end it right there. I'm out. Shalom. I said your favorite